This is just a quick presentation on market equilibrium. In the pink, I've just set up a very simple scenario. Widgets can be supplied by ABC Company using the model S of P is equal to 3P plus 50. When widgets cost $2, 100 will be purchased, but when widgets cost $2.75, only 80 will be purchased. Find the market equilibrium price. Okay. So I did type up for this presentation the instructions of how we might go about finding this. And from the information that I've given you, we're already given the supply equation, but we need to write a demand equation. We're going to assume that the demand equation is linear and use the information that we have to write that linear demand equation. We're going to set up a spreadsheet, and we're going to create a difference column and goal seek that difference to 0. So let's get started. The very first thing that we want to do, recognizing we have the supply equation, it's important that we go ahead and write our demand equation. So to do that, we only have 2 points, so this hopefully is review. We're going to set up our information, but we've got to do it horizontally as opposed to vertically, because we only have 2 points. So with the points that we have, the price, one price we have is $2. At a price of $2, 100 are purchased. At a price of $2.75, 80 are purchased. So that's enough information for us to highlight, insert a scatter plot, right-click a point, and we want to add a trend line. Linear is defaulted, display equation on chart. We can display our R-squared value, but because we have 2 points, this will be 1. And we come up with our demand equation. Okay? So this information is how we find our demand equation. So let's take that, put it aside, and now let's go ahead and start looking at the rest of the information. So what we want to do now is set up our spreadsheet. We're going to have a column for price. Remember, that's P. We're going to have our supply equation. We're going to have our demand equation. And everybody, another little thing here, if I wanted to wrap my text on that, if you highlight that cell, hit wrap text, and you can see that a little bit differently. If I wanted to pull this in, I could come here, wrap the text. Looks a little bit neater. And then in my last column, that's where I'm going to have my difference. Okay, let's set up a reasonable domain for price. Well, 0, 2, because that happens to be something that we're seeing already over here, 2. Some people like to even put in 275. And then we might skip around a little bit. 5, 25, 24. Okay, our supply equation, we're just going to type directly in. That's equal to 3 times P, access that cell, plus 50. Enter, double-click down. My demand equation, remember, is going to come from here, equal negative 26.667 times access P plus 153.33, enter. Double click that down. Let's talk about the difference now. The difference is a very simple formula that we create. We start with our equal sign, and we're literally going to subtract, take the supply equation minus the demand equation. Remember, these are amounts, these are quantities, so it's the difference between the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded. We'll double click that down. Interestingly enough, it goes from a difference of negative to a difference of positive, so we know that somewhere between that negative and positive we're going to have 0. It doesn't matter where you goal seek. I'm kind of a creature of habit, so I'm going to go to that last cell in, data, what if, goal seek. We want the difference between supply and demand to be 0. The cell that we're going to change is always the input cell that's in the same row with what we had clicked on originally. Click OK, and there we have it. At a price, it looks like of about $3.48, we sell approximately 60 widgets, or we can supply 60 widgets. 60 widgets are demanded. That's market equilibrium. And so the other questions that arise from this are, okay, well, what does happen if the price is $5? So at a price of $5, when you think about that, 65 can be supplied, but only, maybe 20 are demanded, which gives us a surplus. But if you look at these values up here, at a price of $2, only 56 can be supplied, but close to 100 are demanded, so that leaves us a shortage. So that whole idea of where you might have a shortage or where you might have a surplus, you can also get by looking at your difference column. Hope that helps.